There we go.
We're on.
Okay, there we go. We're live. Right then. So, welcome. Thank you very much for clicking on and joining us. Today, myself and Kieron from Taliesin Antiques are going to have a chat all about the antiques industry. I've recently been to Malvern and I'm going to share my experiences and my thoughts in just a moment, and then we're going to have a deep dive into the antiques industry in general. Before we do, Kieron, do you want to give yourself a proper introduction, buddy?
Yeah, so I'm Kieron Jones. I run TaliesInAntiques.com, and I also have a YouTube channel, Taliesin Antiques, it's called. I'll leave a comment on the video, so if anyone's kind enough to click on my channel and give it a watch, I'll be appreciated. Yeah, that's pretty much it, I think.
Okay, and obviously everybody knows myself. If you're on my channel, it's my name's Walter O'Neill, and I am the founder of Antiques Arena, antiquesarena.com, and we literally focus on bringing you anything antique related. Kieron's channel is exactly like mine. It's very antique related. It's a relatively new channel. I'd love to get him up to the 1,000 subscribers if we could. So if anybody wants to go across there and subscribe, it'd be brilliant if we could get him to 1,000 subscribers, especially by the end of today. He does haul videos, educational videos, tutorial videos, just like myself. So shall we get started? I see your comment, Kindred Spirit, and we will get to it in a few minutes. If anybody wants to join into the video, give comments, opinions, and things, we will put them all up on the screen. We'll share them and discuss them. But before we get to the actual comments and things, I want to actually talk about what's prompted today's video. Now, I've recently worked Malvern Flea Market, Giant Flea. Now, this is basically a small antique fair, if you like, or a big antique fair, in Three County Showground in Malvern in Worcester. You've been there, Key. Do you want to explain your experience, what it was like when you went there in the summer?
Yeah, when I went there, it was very busy. So it's a big showground. There's a lot. I found that you struggle to get around. I was struggling to get around the whole thing within one day. That's how many stalls were there. I went first thing, and it seemed to be a lot of dealers with their trolleys and picking up all sorts. I found furniture interestingly. I think that'll be what we'll come on to. But I found furniture seemed to be a big seller when I went there. And this was very early on in the summer. I think I went in sort of April time, around that sort of time. But yeah, heaving, I found a lot of high value stock. A good range of stock is what I found.
Okay, well, I just worked it about a week ago, and my experience couldn't be any more different. Now, I sold. I'd like to point out, Kieron went to Malvern buy-in. I went to Malvern selling. I'd done a full breakdown video on my membership side where I showed loading the van up. I showed the stall. I talked to you about the things that were happening on the day. And today's video is an extension of that. Now, first of all, I'd like to start off by saying I got into Malvern. I had an extra long wheelbase van full of furniture, carpets, fireplaces. I had a really good stall up in Malvern. So I went in, they put us in place, and we set up. Now, before they'd even opened the gates to let in the buyers, I'd done probably £1,300 off other stall holders. So that in itself tells you when the trade come to the stall, they were interested. Exactly the same as when we go to car boot sales, all the dealers that are actually in there buy a lot of good stuff before it opens. So anyway, up past 7, they open the gate. And now, I don't know what time you got there when you went there, Key, right? But 7:30 when you open the gate in Malvern, there's normally a flood of dealers coming in buying. Now, they opened the gates at 7:30, and we saw half a dozen people walk down the aisle. Now, I understand some would have gone there, some would have gone there, some would have gone there. It would have branched out. But I've never seen it so spread out. so sparse, if you like, with trade. Anyway, over the next couple of hours, well, let's say for the next hour or so, what I sold things very quickly were like mid-century things, mid-century lamps, Danish tables, things like that. I sold the mid-century stuff super fast. And then, but it was really quiet. And then from about 9 o'clock until I gave up at 1 o'clock, I don't think I took a tenner. The general public that come in were absolutely disastrous. So it was really, really strange. Now, I spoke to the stall holders opposite me, and to give you an example, they were selling Welsh blankets, enamel signs, things like that. And they had some maybe 3-foot square enamel signs from pubs, double-sided, absolutely gorgeous. Prince of Wales pub with 3 feathers on the back and writing on the other side. They couldn't even get $2.50 for them. We found there was a major lack in real dealers actually there buying.
Yeah, I found your video I found fascinating, to be honest, and because I was going to go up with you, wasn't I? It was kind of just didn't play out that way.
Yeah.
Because we're in a similar position. We're not furniture dealers, we should probably point out, but we have antique furniture that we picked up along the way. But we don't have neither of us have a shop now. We don't have a showroom, so we generally will buy items that we can ship. So the idea was we were both, but as I say, we both picked up furniture along the way. We were both going up there to sell the furniture because it seemed like a good place to do that. But your experience was quite an eye opener for how that played out. And
when you consider, right, that obviously the trade were interested because when they come to my stall before they even opened, they were buying what I got. Now, for context, I took Persian carpets from Iran, things like that. I had a solid bronze fireplace that weighed like 50 kilos. It took 2 of you to lift it up. It was solid bronze. It had some really good things. Now that fireplace should have been like $2.50 in scrap. They had really good gear, but genuinely we saw no trade. And the dealers we did see at 7:30 were more resellers than traditional antique dealers. I don't want to offend anybody by that term, but what I mean is they're people that come in, they buy things to resell them on eBay and quick flip, earn some money. There wasn't the old traditional antique dealer where they come in, load their trolleys up with furniture and they ship it off to another country type thing. I didn't see any of them type of people.
And that's your point, isn't it? That in previous years, maybe even early on in the year when I went, even then it may have still been the case that if you would expect to have seen those dealers there, but for some reason they didn't seem to be there last week.
No. And it weren't just my store. There was a few vans dotted around me, and they were all commenting on, well, in fact, one of the biggest comments was, they said that Malvern is slowly becoming a big car boot sale. Now, I got a few opinions on their statement. First of all, I can understand where they're coming from because, first of all, when you go in, now, when you work in antique fair, if you go in a van, you've always had space in front of you. You've always had like 20-foot deep stall, things like that in front of you, 10-foot either side. So you have a real big area to put out your furniture and your things like that. But when I went to Malvern last week, they put us in no different to a car boot sale. They drove us in lines, and the aisle was only 10-15 foot wide. I don't know, did I share photos in the original video of the aisle? I think I did. Yeah. So the aisles were like 10-15 feet wide maximum. So you only had the normal depth you get at a car boot sale and maybe 5 or 10 foot either side of your vehicle. Now, the only reason I had a bit more was because I got there early and I played up with the man putting us in place and said, I need more room in that. I said, I come in a van. But there was probably, in the casual pictures, I'm not talking about internal because I didn't go inside to have a look. Inside was probably all vans where they pre-booked. But the casual pictures were mostly cars. And they put us in rows, just like you do at a car boot sale, and they give us hardly any room. The van opposite me could only unload half of his gear because he didn't have room. He had the depth of maybe a pasting table and a little bit either side of his van to put a couple of bits of furniture up, but he didn't have room to set a stall out. So first of all, they'd set us out like a car boot sale. They hadn't given the vans the proper room. And bear in mind, the vans paid a lot more money than the cars. Right, and they give us the same amount of room as the cars. They just drove us in and said, that's your pitch. which I thought was absolutely atrocious for the amount of space they got on the grounds. The grounds there is massive. So the space they had there and the way they crammed us all in was atrocious. The lack of trade, the things I thought would sell didn't sell. That, to be honest with you, I could have taken, with what I took on the van, I could have done that £1,500 at a car boot sale at Madley or something like that. I could have worked Madley and done the same money there in a lot less effort and a lot less cost.
Mm-hmm.
The stalls opposite me and around me were all saying they felt it would turn into a car boot sale. And then later on, once the public were in, I was selling things for £5 and £10 and they were offering me £1 and £2. So there was car boot sale mentality going on at Malvern.
Yeah. It's funny as well because independently, when we were talking a couple of weeks beforehand about going to Melbourne, but the weather was playing up. We weren't sure what to do. So I was speaking independently to other dealers about going up to Melbourne, and they were saying things like, "Oh, it's just a big car boot sale up there." But obviously, I was thinking, well, I went earlier in the year and I didn't get that impression. I went as a buyer, and then you've come back, and then you've had your experience up there, and it seems to be that seems to be to be what's going on. And I suppose the question is whether that's reflective of something happening bigger than just Melbourne, or if it's just or do you think it might just be a Melbourne approach?
Well, I haven't done the antique fair circuit for a long time because obviously I do everything on the website now. But I used to do the circuit. I used to do Swinderby, Newark, Antiques in the Park in Derby, Kempton Racecourse. I used to do the circuit. And I've never experienced a vibe so poor with the trade entrance open. When they open the gate for the trade, they're normally rushing in, all desperate to get to the stall. And the dealers, they come in, they're so fast, they scan in the stall, they don't mess about. If you got something there, they'll buy it straight away and they'll get on because they're better off paying the full price or getting a quick little discount than haggling for 20 minutes and missing something on the next stalls. They're in a rush. You had none of that. You really didn't. None of that was there in Malvern this week gone. It was flat. It got busy when the public come in. Now, you would expect it to be rammed up at 7 by 8 o'clock when the trade are in, but it was quiet until about 9:09. That's when the public started arriving. Then it got very, very busy. But the trade was very, very poor, and I've never seen it before. It never used to be like that at the antique fairs I used to work. You weren't in the game 10, 20 years ago, but I used to do all the big international ones. I used to sleep in the back of the car and I'm working at Swinderby and Derby and things like that. And it was a total different vibe.
It's an odd one. So I went to Bill Wells, of course, a few weeks ago, the Bill Wells Fair, and I filmed that. And if you watch that video, you'll see, I guess, what a dealer's like, because I was moving around fast and I was looking at things, and a few people didn't like the video because of that. But that's reflective of what a dealer's like, I suppose. It's a good insight into how a dealer would operate. It's hard to tell for me how well Bill Wells went, I guess, in a way as well, because obviously I was there as a buyer. But it never at any point, you'll see I mentioned in the video, it didn't feel busy at any point. I never felt like there's loads of people here, and I was there till 1 o'clock. So, yeah, it does make you wonder, has something happened at that point?
But from your video, you done a dealer point of view video. So it was fast. It was blurry at times. If people want to get an actual sense of what it's like to be a dealer and they watch your video, you scan a stall that quick and you move on to the next stall, right? That's dealer point of view. But one thing I did notice at your video was stalls were given plenty of room.
No, yeah. There was no complaints about that, I don't think.
I was looking at your stalls and some of them vans had 20, 30-foot depth stalls. But they weren't like that in Malvern. In Malvern, we were laid out just like a car boot sale.
Yeah. And car boot sale mentality is they pack you in because they don't actually know how many people are going to show up to sell. So they pack you in on the assumption, well, we need as much room as possible to get as many people in as possible. Whereas I think an antiques fair should operate on a higher level than that. They should be thinking, we care more about the dealers bringing in good quality stuff and having the opportunity to create a nice store as well, not just pack as much stuff out as possible. A lot of dealers like to present well, and they need space to do that. And individual items need to have their own area to look as good as they are. If you're just packing a load of stuff in, it's hard to it's hard to pick things out.
Well, in the cow sheds in Malvern, they pre-laid out stalls. So they all had their normal length, normal stalls, normal room, right? But in casual, and I think actual casual is actually dearer than pre-booking at Malvern, right? Because when you pre-book, they've guaranteed they got your money. When it's casual, it's not. So I think the pre-booked ones all had their not standard room. But outside, the casuals, we were all put in like a big car boot sale and nothing more. So that is how the casuals were treated outside, as a big car boot sale, whether you had a van or whether you had a car. And there was 90% cars in the casuals, in my opinion. It really was. And when you consider the size of Malvern, it's massive. It's miles and miles squared. Now, they did have some event going on because they had tents dotted here and everywhere. Maybe there was an agricultural show on or something like that the previous week. I don't know, because there were still tents left out. But there was so much ground they didn't use, and they rammed us all in, so we didn't even have enough room to put our stuff out.
Well, not ultimately, whether they had an event before or not, you still paid the same amount of money as you would any other fairs. You should expect the same service as you would have got on those other ones anyway. So,
well, another point I wanted to raise about Malvern, another reason that made me say that the trade didn't come. Now, I went there selling with my son. My son was a bit nervous. He wouldn't let me walk around because he was worried about trying to deal with people with the stock and theft, all the rest of it, right? Because it all goes on. So I stayed with him. Anyway, about 12 o'clock, I'd had enough. I'd done like £10 in the last 2 hours. And at Malvern, that's shocking. And I said, I really want to go. And he said, do you know what? Go and have a walk around, Dad, he said. Right. And just take your mind off it. So I went for a walk around. And I come back with 10 19th century Georgian and Victorian drinking glasses for £50. That was a £5 a glass. I've subsequently listed those for about £400 in total for the 10. Some really nice early Georgian Bristol green glasses, or Regency Bristol green glasses, Victorian rummers, some real nice early ones, 1820, 1830. And I bought these at the end of the day for a £5 a glass, right? Now, when I go to Malvern buy-in, I'm there at 7:30, I'm running around the stalls, and that's the stuff I'm looking for. And I'm lucky to find the odd glass here and there, let alone just buy 10 within 10, 20-minute walk at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. It shouldn't have been there.
Well, you can't Google Lens them, can you? It's maybe the point. That's something that you need to have the knowledge to buy, I would have thought.
But Malvern is an international flea market, giant flea market. Malvern, honestly, it's been one of the biggest flea markets in the country for as long as I can remember. All right, it's had international buyers at the flea market and the antique fair for as long as I can remember. That type of stuff shouldn't be sitting on a stall at 12 o'clock in the afternoon for a £5.
Yeah, so as you say, it must suggest people with the knowledge around something like a drinking glass, which is not something. That's one of those things you have to go off and learn, don't you? And pick up. You can't take a picture. Yeah. Generally, with drinking glasses, you can't really take a picture and Google Lens it and find the value, because it doesn't work as well with Google Lens. I find with a drinking glass, you have to kind of know all the little details.
Yes and no. You got to know what glass to take a photograph of, right? But I think even AI now has come a long way, where you can take a photograph and Gemini on Google or whatever now will tell you if it's a Victorian glass or if it's a Georgian glass. It really does now, right? But it's not just the drinking glasses. When you consider, right, I couldn't sell Iran rugs. And we're not talking little rugs, you're talking 10, 12-foot square rugs for £100. That should have been £300-400 each. Right, that I weren't even getting asked. I think I got asked once, I said in the original video, on that fireplace, and it was like £250 worth of scrap bronze. Even the scrappies should have been in there asking to buy it. If you don't ask, you don't even know the price.
Yeah, that's kind of the biggest thing, isn't it? Is that there's something not right when people aren't even asking you how much of things, and that's where it starts to get like. I guess the point I'm making there is about the type of trade-in who must have been there, because, as I say, with the drinking glasses and a few other things like the rugs as well, that's not it's kind of not general knowledge sort of thing, if that makes sense. That's something you have to know your way around the industry and done a bit of research and read up on things to kind of know to even look it up. And
which is why I'm saying the trade weren't there.
Yeah.
I'm not talking general republic or resellers. I'm talking the traditional trade. I don't think they was there. The enamel signs on the stall opposite me, you'd have ripped their arms off. I know if you had been with me, you'd have bought them yourself.
Yeah.
Right? If I'd been walking around, right, and I still had a shop, I'd have bought those rugs myself. I'd have bought the fireplace myself. The traditional antique dealer weren't there. So, is the game changing? Or are people struggling? Or they're not buying at the flea markets now and they're just going to auction and making life easier for them? I don't know.
Well, what I'd say is, I guess you can always think of the trade as a bit of like a pyramid, right? So right at the top, you have those kind of London dealers who can command the highest prices, and they have clients who are probably millionaires. And then you start going down. You start going down to specialist dealers. Then you get down to sort of general reselling or general antique dealers. Now, I'm not saying the higher up the ladder you are, the better. It doesn't necessarily mean the higher the way higher up you are, the more profit you make. It just means that you work in those markets. People have shops and stuff like that, sort of work their way up. I operate down the bottom end of it, by the way. I go out and buy things cheap. I'm a general antiques dealer, and I'm more than happy to sell the trade. In fact, ideally, that's not a bad way to flip things. But what my thinking is that is the top of that ladder, the people who have the shops, who are specialist antique dealers who sell things at the highest prices, is that drying up? And then the bottom end is swelling up. So you've got it's always been bottom heavy, but as the balance tipped even more. So you've got a lot of people now who were probably at Malvern who are general dealers who are going in, buying things that they can put on eBay or they can put on wherever, marketplace, make a quick flip. There's a lot of them around, and maybe those people who would buy the Persian rugs, who would buy the fireplaces, buy the furniture to put in their shops. Maybe that's where there's a slowdown in the market, and that's having an impact on places like the antique fairs.
I can accept that some of the things I had may be too traditional or out of fashion, right? Because let's be totally frank, antiques, fashions, tastes, they change all the time. They really do. Let's say, for argument's sake, fireplaces. A lot of people now don't even have a fireplace. Now, if I went back 10, 15 years, the Art Nouveau fireplace I had they'd have been shooting me to get it. They'd have been robbing me blind to get it, right? The solid bronze one, with the cost of bronze these days, right, it should have gone even if a scrappy had bought it, right? Or the trade would know just in its weight of bronze. But maybe some of the things I had, like I had the bed and I had a few other things, the furniture, things like that. I know furniture's hard to sell. Now, I did see one or two people walking around in Malvern with pine trunks and chests and things like that, right? But I don't know. Maybe the market's changing then, because I sold very quickly all the mid-century stuff. The mid-century stuff flew out the door. Now, we know ourselves there's a little indoor flea market in Tremorfa, in Cardiff. There are specialist dealers in there selling nothing but mid-century furniture and mid-century pieces. That's all they sell. They're the specialists in it for a reason, because it's obviously selling.
Yeah.
But I'm going to run an experiment. I want to know whether the industry is on his arse, as has been suggested already. Kindred spirit there, all industries are struggling, but I want to know whether the industry is on his arse or whether or not they're just not going to the antique fairs. Maybe it's easier for them now to just browse auction catalogues, place bids, and pick up wherever they pick up. So everything that came back from Malvern, is going into a no reserve auction. And I'm going to see if I achieve the same money in an auction as I was asking in Malvern, and whether it sells and what it sells for. It's going to be a really interesting experiment, to be honest with you, because as you've pointed out, you and I sell online. We're not furniture dealers, we're not big-end antique dealers, but we accumulate these things, whether it's through house clearance or whether we pick them up as we go along through the year. Now, I've saved these pieces up for a few years. It's probably 3-4 years worth of saving up stuff that I felt was way too good to be just chucked out on a car boot sale. But yeah, I done terrible with them in Malvern.
Look, auctions are quite a safe place to buy these days because obviously you've got the images beforehand, you've got time to make a decision, you can go off and you can research the values before you place a bid. Anecdotally, what I've noticed, because I don't buy from auctions very often anymore, but I do keep an eye on them. And to me, it looks like items go for what I'd consider too much money to make a profit on. And I think that's changed within the time that I've been doing antique dealing within about 5 years. Furniture's a weird one. The things that you're talking about, I just wonder if the people who have shops done are buying like they used to, or if they're being very cautious at the minute. And maybe that's influencing them. I bet they'll sell. All your stuff will sell. I don't know how much for, but I've got no doubt about it that they'll
sell. It'll all sell because it's going in no reserve.
That's
So it'll all sell. Right. I'll give you another example of someone I took up there. I didn't even get asked the price. I have got that beautiful carved rocking horse. Beautiful, full-size carved rocking horse. Right, in beautiful condition, carved out of a hardwood, light like pine, but it's a hardwood carved. I didn't even get asked the price. I'm putting that in and all. It's all going. I want all the big stuff gone because I need to make room for my storage for my more containers for my online. Now I want to bring up this comment. Now I've said this for years. You know, antiques are non-essential luxuries, right? And we are literally living in uncertain times. Let's just say uncertain times where we're all in a financial crisis or credit crunch. You've got utilities have doubled or trebled, rent's doubled, food has probably tripled. You know, cost of living has gone up, skyrocketed, whereas incomes have stayed relatively stagnant. And antiques are a luxury. Now, we find this when we got car boot sales. Now, Kieron and myself, we both sell at car boot sales, not because we want to, but we use them as a way of getting in early. We like to walk around the car boot sales early and have first pickings. So we sell at the car boot sales. And we sell at Madley in Hereford. We were selling in Hengoed in Tirabirth in South Wales, but neither of us sell there anymore. We both give that one up. And we sell in Gatley, sell in Goitra and Abergavenny. And we have, in a rule, good experiences. But do you want to outline, Key, what's been recently happening towards the end of the season, especially in places like Hengoed and that, with regards to antiques?
Do you mean in terms of the public, the offers? Or?
Okay, let me outline this out then, right? We don't sell proper antiques at car boot sales. What we sell at car boot sales is if we buy a job lot or something, we take out what we want, what's left, we'll bang out very cheap at car boot sale. Or we'll do house clearance and the things we don't want will go to car boot sales. Or if we buy something and somebody hasn't told us about the damage or something like that, we'll put it back out and we'll say, it's there now for a couple of quid because someone didn't tell me it was damaged. That type of thing we sell at car boot sale, right? So I sell anything that's household or anything that is non-antique, because anything quality goes on my website, Antiques Arena, right? But what has it been like? We've been working at places like Hengoed and things like that, and tell them what the sales have been like.
Sales plural is a good start. I've done a few. I've done a few where I barely made the pitch, and the pitch is only £7, so I told you everything you need to know. It's not like we put tags or anything on our things that say that's £5. Like no one knows what the price of our items are. They're perfectly good items. They're resellable actually. A lot of the pieces I put out could be bought by a reseller and they can make good 15, 20 quid on few of them. I've got such a backlog of items. I had thousands of items online. I actually take some things out and say, right, that would go right at the back of my backlog. So there's no point in me keeping it in storage. I might as well go and make, a small percent of the value on the car boot sale. But I don't because it doesn't sell, and it doesn't sell for a couple of quid or, it's really hard. I went to Madley on Sunday and I did okay there actually, but that's probably the first boot sale I've sold well at since maybe July or something like that, maybe earlier than that. It's been very, very slow going on the car boot sales, and yeah, considering we're not talking, we're talking about things that we're trying to clear. I'm very open to offers and stuff like this, but yeah, it's difficult times even at the sort of that end of the market at the minute.
I can't single any single boot sale out, right? Because we've been struggling at quite a lot of them, right? I think you'll agree with me there. I go to Gay, I go to Hengoid. In fact, Hengoid, I've had the worst results out of Hengoid I've ever had. But it's not just Hengoid. I've all been struggling at them all. Now, I see people going there, they're buying clothes, they're buying shoes, they're buying children's toys, they're buying essentials, things they can't afford to buy in the shops, and they're buying them at the boot sale. Now, you was at the stall, you and Rob were up my stall, right? And a lady came up to me on my stall and she picked up 2 crystal tumblers. Watch him smile. 2 crystal tumblers, right? Now, I didn't say £5 or £10 for 2 crystal tumblers. What did I tell her? Can you remember?
50p each.
50 pence each.
Yeah.
Beautiful crystal tumblers in good condition. I said 50 pence each, love. I have trays of house clearance and I just clear the stuff out. I said 50 pence each. And what did she do about it?
The reason it was funny was that she was like indignant. It was like she said no thanks, but not just like no thank you in a polite way, kind of like almost like she was insulted by how much you asked for them. And we were just like, I just remember like literally, I say, my mouth just dropped just because of the way she said no thanks. It was just kind of like,
yeah. It was the attitude behind it when it was almost like she threw them back in the box because I'd said 50 pence a tumbler, right? It was no thank you in such a stern way, and off she went. I was stood there with Kieron and Rob, and the three of us just jaw dropped and laughed. When did 50 pence become expensive? And is that a reflection on the current times we're living in? 50 pence at a car boot sale is a joke. Now, I want to give some contrast to this. There's 3 of us dealers that stall out regularly side by side. We did travel around and we keep each other company. We watch each other's stalls if we walk around, things like that. And Sean and Rob have a stall and they are different dealers to us. Now, Kieran and myself, we operate on a type of business model where we buy specialist items, we ask retail value for the items, and we sit down them until we find the right buyer. We don't take these quality items to car boot sales. They go on our website. When we go to car boot sales, we take rubbish. But Sharon and Rob work on a different type of business model. They work on a fast flip model where they buy things that they know are exceptionally good and they sell them to dealers. They sell them to people like myself, Kieran. In fact, we were in Goitra on Saturday and I spent probably 40 or 50 pound with them. You spent 25, 30 pound with them. So we regularly buy off them. In fact, I don't think there's many car boot sales where I don't browse this stall and probably pick something up. And they do hundreds of pounds at every car boot sale without fail. But they're selling jewelry, silver, good quality pieces. They're selling antiques and collectibles, but they're selling them to the trade. Now, I got a question for you. It's a really important question for everybody. Are the trade moving the stuff on, or are they optimistically buying it off them because it's so cheap and hoping to get a profit and getting stuck with it? Now, there's thousands and thousands of antique dealers across the country. If you focused your business model to supply antique dealers and only supply antique dealers and price is so cheap that they go, well, I can't leave it there at that price, and one day I may get this amount of money for it, then you could make a very good business model off that, which is what Sean and Rob are doing. They buy it in, they bang it out straight away, they're out buying the next thing. All right. I buy things off them all the time. Some of it I still got two or 3 years later. So, can we actually take into consideration Sharon and Rob stall into today's discussion because they sell into dealers and the dealers just buying it optimistically, hoping to make a profit? Or the public willing to buy the stuff if it's next to nothing? But on our stalls, They don't even ask. And do they not ask because they look professional and they expect us to be expensive? But when you say 50 pence a tumbler and they throw them down in disgust and run away.
There's a few things there, because I guess a lot of people say, well, the quality is the difference there. Because what we're saying is, effectively, Rob and Sharon Stoll's got better quality items than ours. So they still command a price even in tough economic times that we're going through at the minute. But yeah, I guess when you look at our store, one thing I will say is we have noticed is obviously we go to the same places and we're known faces and we're known dealers. And I know for a fact that people, I mean, a lot of people don't even look at the store. I think that's the biggest thing. Is a lot of people we know are dealers walk past the aisle and they don't even look at what we're selling because there's an assumption of, well, they're dealers. They've obviously looked into it and they're only selling it because it's got no value, which, as I explained earlier, is not the case, certainly for me anyway. I've got such a big backlog. I'm cashing out cheap on some items, even though I know that if I did photograph them up and put them on my website or put them on eBay, I would make a good deal amount more profit. So we're all in different situations. It's when I first got into antique dealing, I would have been buying those sort of things off a store like mine or yours. I bought off yours back in the day as well. Just because we got different situations, different markets, different points of where our business are. So
what's to say, right? What's bottom end for me isn't really good for you or will make you a good profit, innit? Right? Because I'm looking for things worth hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands. When I walk around car boot sales, right, I overlook anything that's 10, 20 pound in value. I don't want it. I'm looking for stuff that I can make 40, 50 pound profit on per item. So when I'm selling, I use that same scale tool, if you like, where if I got an item and I think it's only going to sell for 10, 15, 20 pound, and I don't think it's going to be a quick seller, then I'd rather bang it out for £2 in the box than take up my time, take up my storage and all the rest of it. I'd rather have it gone. I'd rather £2 or £3 in, use that £2 or £3 to buy a bit of gold.
Yeah.
So I do have good things in my boxes. They're just not good enough for me.
The funny thing is, well, we only sell. I say only. It's a massive broad spectrum. But antiques, vintage collectibles don't sell modern anything. You know, toys. What did I have recently that I've had from like house clearance and stuff? Disney mugs, for example. I don't sell them. I don't sell pop figures or anything like that. But I had a lot of them recently, and I put them in a box, which was, I think I had one box at 50p each. I had one box £1 each. And people who do resell those items walk right past my store. And then eventually that sort of stuff did sell to people who didn't know me. So I don't know if that makes sense, but I think it's interesting that in those car boot sales, our stores get ignored because there's an assumption of we're going to be asking too high a price on things or what we're selling can't be worth anything. When in fact, look, there's a lot of things I just don't sell, so I flip them and get rid of them.
Last year, I don't know if you remember, I cleared that big house, massive house in Trelewis. All right. And I was going to the car boot sales with stuff in trays. And I would fill my car up to work the car boot sale. And I would go home with one tray out of a full car. I would sell it all. Right. It'd be £1, £2. I wouldn't be expensive on nothing, right? And every single week would be different stocks. So they can't use the excuse of it's seen the same stock all the time, right? And I would be selling to the trade week after week after week. And then all of a sudden, I'd be taking the new stock there and they're walking past. And it's not like I just say I'm selling them something for 20, 30 pound and I'm hiding the damage. I'm selling stuff in trays for £1 and £2, and they've been buying off me well. And then all of a sudden they go, oh well, I don't want them more than I'm off like. So I get the same as you, but they see you too much. But in all honesty, when you're having different stock all the time from house clearances, I don't know about you, but they're the first people I go to. I would rather buy off other dealers and trade than buy off the general public.
Yeah. 100%. If you know you're seeing stock for the first time, that's something you should be getting in there very quickly for as well. So, Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how this reflects on the antiques industry. To be honest, I don't know if I've pushed us off topic a little bit, but I guess it goes to
Yeah, you're
show
fine.
that every end of the market seems to be slowing down at the minute. Even at the car boot sales, which is meant to be your clearance, get a little bit of income going. As you were saying, we only go there to kind of get in early. The main thing that is frustrating for me though is just not. I'm there to clear. Space is what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for huge amounts of money. I want a decent amount, which I'll reinvest into things I go and buy in the boot sale. But the stuff that I need the space is effectively what I'm trying to do. And you
Now,
kind
I
of
want
do
to address the comment, if I can. Sorry, Key. I want to address the comment on the screen. All right. That many dealers are giving up entirely because it's too difficult to make a good living at it. All right. I want to point out the difference. Now, you and I both have websites, good websites. All right. And we're both doing extremely well on the websites. But is that because we're selling internationally? Because 90% of what I sell goes overseas. I've taken a massive hit of recent over the American new laws that have come in, and Kieron will explain them to you in a minute, but I want to get my point out before he explains them to you. I'm still doing fine online, but I'm selling all over the world. And if I wasn't selling all over the world, I would be on my knees, because I used to make a good living on car boot sales. I used to make a good living on the antique fairs, but I don't seem to be able to sell general household on the antique fairs or car boot sales, or the antiques that I don't want on my website. Now, you tell me what is wrong with Persian rugs, African art, because I had that beautiful African painting, Art Nouveau fireplace, solid bronze fireplace, French side chest, one of those corner units and things, corner tables. There was nothing wrong with any of it. I would have expected it all to sell. I think, is the UK in more trouble than the rest of the world? I don't know. But what do you think? You can explain the American comment then, but what do you think first?
I definitely believe it is. I think there is big issues in the UK, and we don't need to go into the wider politics of it. I think it's pretty well documented in this case, and we're in an interesting place, aren't we, in terms of seeing it firsthand? Like, people in the news can talk about how the economy's going, and the government can say things are going like this. We know the difference between how the market is changing, and as the comment rightly said, we're in the luxuries market, and they're the first things to go. When people are struggling, the first things they stop buying are luxuries. So when we start to notice a downturn, that's usually a good sign of things that people are not spending their money on that anymore. So in what I started to notice was absolutely that the way my website was going, mine's only about a year old, and I was gaining a lot of traction in the US and abroad, not really in Europe so much, to be honest. A lot of it was going to Asia, Australia as well. It seemed like a big market. And you have to remember about those places, they're not just paying my asking price, they're paying the shipping on top of that as well. So different places in the world, antiques are going to have different markets, because, let's say, economy is going to be doing differently. They're going to have less availability of the type of stock that you get in the UK. And yeah, I think the UK is going a different way. It could be a taste thing as well. I think that's something I was noticing anyway. The taste. We were talking about this probably a few months ago, weren't we? That it's kind of almost a bit sad that we got such a great history in this country of, our history and the different eras and the different antiques that we would have here that nowhere else in the world would have, but they all want them. But they're not appreciated in the UK that much anymore. It seems to be almost like it was on the downturn anyway, from a taste point of view. But certainly now that our economy feels like it's tanking, even the people who are interested are not investing in them either. So, or doing some
Getting off a point a minute. You're supposed to be covering the American point, the tax.
And I'll come on. What I was getting at is, so the American. I was getting there. After, if you let me speak for another 2 hours, I might have got there.
All right.
But With the American side of things, as I was mentioning, that was gaining traction for me, going up and up. It seemed like where I was going to be having a lot of my market. In August, there was a change brought into tariffs, so well documented. The Trump tariffs were brought in. What it meant was that there's now additional cost for anybody in the US who wants to buy an antique or any item actually and ship it into the US. They've now got to pay a lot more for it. There is a set amount percentage you have to pay on the value of the item based on where the item is made. So Chinese, it's not where you're sending it from, it's where the item is made. If I'm sending Chinese porcelain, I have to pay, the value is based on the Chinese tariff, which is about 35%. If it was an item made in the UK, it's about 10%. So when you're selling high value items like us, if you think of it that way, if it's £100 item, on top of the additional shipping costs that they're paying already, they would be paying, based on where the item's made, an extra 10%, an extra 35%. As both of us have found, that's really hit hard the US market to a point where it's almost a complete stop. I think I've only had one sale from the US since that's come in. I don't even know if it's about the cost for the US buyers more the uncertainty. They're not sure about how it works, because it actually works differently than most duties paid. Usually duties are something that you pay when it kind of arrives at your door. You pay it in your own country, but in this situation, it's on us as the sellers. It's our obligation to take that money and then pay the duties in advance. But it's just dried up that market. What I also found, it doesn't feel like that's well known or well appreciated in the in the UK, because that's going to affect every platform. That's not just affecting us on our website. That's going to be affecting eBay just as much. So yeah, it's had a real hit on that market, and it does make you think, is that a trickle-down effect?
Let me explain to you just how little people are aware of the effect of this in America. Now, first of all, right, I sell probably 5 to 10 items a week to America. I've now dropped to 1 item a week. Kieron has been with his web designer host for a little over a year now. And he approached them and said, well, is there any way you can actually put in something to add a set percentage? Because I showed him how easy it was for me. I went on my website. I just went, right, I'm going to add standard 20% to anybody and set the parameter that anybody in America buys is going to be a set 20%. Kieron went to his designer, hosts, and what have you, and said, and these people have hundreds and hundreds of customers, all in the antiques profession, and said to them, look, this new tariff's in, it's going to cost us a lot of money. We need to take away any barriers for the buyer. If they come to the site, we want them to buy straight away. So we don't want them emailing us, want them to phone us and all this. They'll just walk away. He said, I want a way to add the 20% or 10% or 30%, whatever it is, for the item by country. So basically, all they had to do was set up an additional cost on the checkout specifically only for USA. It is that simple, because I've done it on my own site, right? So the search term that triggers it is country of origin, country of destination USA, and it would set up a standard tariff to put on there. These have hundreds and hundreds of dealers. Kieron is now looking for a new site. He's just taken a new hosting plan with the company I'm with, and he's now in the process of building a new website, because his year-in website venture is now going south, because they're not willing to put in this USA cost, because apparently there's no call for it. Something like that, isn't it, mate?
Yeah, so when I made the request, as you said, they've got hundreds of antique dealers. I wonder if any of them are watching. I won't name them, but you can probably work it out.
No, I'm not interested in naming
them. Yeah, their response was, there was a lot of questions to me about what this is and what it means, which was a red flag already, because I thought, well, you should be on top of things like this anyway. Once I explained it and we got around it, they said, we're not going to make any fundamental changes to the website. It's a big job and you're the only person to ask for it. Which, of course, my response is, that's extremely shocking, because that's, there's no way this doesn't affect your sales. There's no way in a million years other antique dealers are still getting sales from the US as they were before, and even if they are, that it wasn't having any impact on them unless they were doing something nefarious where they weren't paying it by taking alternative routes, which they shouldn't do, is illegal. So yeah, something basically what they then offered was what you can do is you can send them a link after the fact to pay the rest of the fees, which is an appalling customer experience. Imagine you bought something thinking you paid for it, and then I send you a link saying, by the way, the duties on this is this much. Can you pay that, or we're gonna have to cancel the order? I just wouldn't. Yeah, and as the comment says, that's yeah.
You go to jail if you do that, especially if you're running a big company or business like we are.
Wouldn't dream of it, and it's not worth the risk. Is all I'd say to that. But maybe people are doing that, and that's how they think they're getting around it. But that's not an attitude of a company which is hosting all these antique dealers anyway. So yeah, that was kind of a line in the sand. Well, I can't operate like that. I want this to be in place. I think it should be. So I'm now going to go off and do my own website where I can make those changes as and when, because you don't know what's going to happen, do you, when you're operating a website? This has happened now. Who knows what's going to happen next? You want to work at pace. You want to make sure that you're responding to changes, not having to justify doing it based on whether other people are asking for it as well.
But genuinely, mate, right? I don't understand their reluctance to put that option in place. A, it's going to be needed for the rest of their clients eventually, right? If they're selling all overseas, right? But B, it is not a hard task anyway. It took me about 10 minutes to do myself, and I am not computer literate. I was talked through how to do it on AI. I used AI, and that taught me how to set it all up on my site. And if I can do it with no brains at all, or computer brains, right, then don't tell me a developer couldn't knock that up for their system in probably an hour or two. In fact, I would imagine there's already an option on there. If they use any sort of WooCommerce or anything like that, there's already an option in the WooCommerce stores to add extra costs on for tariffs and things. It's already there. They just got to set it up. I want to answer Kindred Spirit's comment there. I've got a big website. I have some like 100,000 visitors a month. I got about 6,000 products up for sale, countless articles. I've been working on my website for 4 or 5 years. I've invested my life, my everything into this website. And if I was to mark someone as a gift or lie on the customs form, A, I could go to jail, or B, they could give me a big enough fine, they could just take my entire site. Now, I don't care what other people are doing. If it's on eBay, then eBay had probably already taken the money anyway. Denver, how are you, mate? How are you doing? I haven't sold anything to the US for 3 months, but I see it all around the world. If you are reliant on one country too much for your business, then it's a dangerous place to be in. I agree with you totally. I'm fortunate that I sell worldwide. All right. But we have noticed there's a massive hit to the American market. Now, one of the reasons we wanted to bring that in was because we were wondering, I didn't see any of the regular dealers, the traditional trade that buys and ships things out in Malvern last week. And we were wondering, is the tariff affecting the international buyers coming to these antique fairs? That's why we were bringing that in. But another one I also wanted to talk about is the UK struggling so much now because of the new HMRC rules? Have we lost a lot of traders in the UK? Is the market being flooded by people dumping this stuff into the market because HMRC rules now that anybody selling now more than so many items or so much money now gets reported automatically to HMRC? Now, that means you've got all the old traditional antique dealers, the old age, who are doing it either as a hobby because they've done it all their life or for a bit of extra income, can't do it anymore. So there's things you got to weigh up. Do you know what I mean, mate?
Yeah, look, if I was operating on eBay now and I was doing, which you still see a lot of people doing, using a personal account but acting as a business. I mean, that as long as you're declaring, that's not too bad. You're only messing around eBay doing that. But if you're not declaring your sales to HMRC, but using online accounts to sell your items, especially eBay or any of them, Vinted or any of them,
I'm marketplace now. They got them all.
Yeah, I'd be very careful and be very concerned about that because they are gathering data, and they will have algorithms being built, which will just pick up on that, and you will get caught. Like they haven't done it up until now very well, but that's all changed. If you don't realise by now, all these companies have to just hand over their accounts to HMRC and all the user logins, all the details about the users. They just run that through their computer and they'll be able to identify who's not declaring their internet sales. So, yeah, if anyone's, I don't doubt anyone who's watching this maybe does that, to be honest, but that is going to have an impact when that starts to get cracked down on. That's going to have a big.
In all honesty, I don't care who is or who isn't using it as a little sideline, right? In this day and age, everybody's struggling to survive, right? But when you start weighing everything up, first of all, I do appreciate your comment there, Kindred Spirit. I wasn't suggesting you would do it. I was just saying we couldn't do it as a company. It would cost us our business or our life, freedom. But when you take into consideration now, for the foreseeable future, America is going to certainly be reduced in trade. We're going to have less trade from America. We've already got all these rules in the UK this year now where they watch in Marketplace, eBay, all the rest of them. So we're losing a lot of dealers like that. And those dealers are banging their stuff out cheap because they can't sell anymore. Within the cost of credit crunch, financial crisis, wherever you want. If you ask me, the country's in a recession. The country's also in turmoil. I'm not getting into politics before anybody starts, but you got uncertainty in the UK with Brit cards and all the rest of the problems that we got in the UK. Are people even interested in buying antiques for investment or to have something pretty on the window when they don't even know where the next meal's coming from? That's my concern.
All I can say is kind of, I imagine it must be the case. So I'm in a situation at the minute where I was saying to you before, stock heavy. Couldn't ask for more stock at the minute. I can't buy at the moment because it's too uncertain for me to keep investing. I've got things I've got to be moving. So I've kind of like paused any spending. I can only imagine if you think about most households, they're going to be doing the same thing, aren't they? They're not going to be going out and saying, right, how do I spend? I guess frivolously is the word, but it is an antique adding to your collection or buying something which is home decor, effectively. It's just not going to be top of the agenda at the minute. It's going to be way, way down. It's never top of the agenda, but usually people will find a bit of money just to spend on something they like, just to, get a little bit of pleasure out of it. I just think at the minute everything's paused and stuck, and this one of those things that you just see in the UK, especially. The money's not flowing at the moment, so you have to. It's the industry. It's one of those things as well. I suppose it is. Is this a short-term thing, a short-term recession thing, or is it a long-term thing? Because is there any light at the end of the tunnel? Is this just a thing for the next few months and then things will turn around, or does it feel like, as you said, there's so much going on at the moment where it's kind of bleak. You don't really see where's the turnaround or where's the. It's almost like morale's low in the country as well. That's another thing, isn't it? It's not even just about the money; it's the morale's low. So people are not. I don't know. It feels like people are not going out there to enjoy life as much, maybe.
Well, I've been doing this job for close on 30 years. I used to go to car boot sales with my parents as a child when they were doing this. So if you added that up as well, close on 40 years, take me to car boot sales. And I suppose that's how I turned back onto car boot sales when I needed money. But I've been doing this as a job for nearly 30 years, right? And I've gone through multiple recessions. And I've survived multiple recessions. And there's ways of surviving recessions and things like this. But in all honesty, I say that and I listen to myself and I think, have we ever been through anything like this? Because not just are we in a financial crisis, the country's in crisis, the world is in crisis. We got new tariffs and laws coming in everywhere. Do you know, as of today, I think it's today, you can no longer withdraw or send any more than £800 to a friend, a family, or anybody without HMRC flagging it and investigating it. They're even on about now anybody who withdraws more than £400 out of your bank in cash in a week being flagged and investigated. The amount of control they're putting on money is shocking. And then you look at all the other restrictions and things on our freedom and everything else that's going to come along with it all. They're already investigating anybody on Marketplace, eBay, and things like that. People are just worried.
And I'll go back to what Kindred Spirit was saying. He was absolutely right with his point about the I'm not sure, but about the gift thing. People, when they get desperate, do strange things for money. And that's the danger, I suppose, as well, for all of us dealers, is not to be tempted to kind of go down that route, because, as you said, it's not. There's a financial situation. It's two things happening at once. There's financial issues, and people want to maximize as much money as they can coming in. If you start making these mistakes and doing things like that, as you said, seems to be a lot more control than ever before at the moment as well, and that sort of stuff will get picked up, and that's more damaging to your business than anything else. So you've got to stay disciplined at the same time as well, haven't you?
I'll ask you this, Kindred Spirit, right? Since you feel the recession's going on for another few years, right? I'll ask this. Is it a recession, or is this just a new world order, a new change? Is the world changing? Is it ever going to go back to what it was? That's the question, because I've been doing it a long time, and I've seen the changes coming in gradually and gradually, building up to a big picture. And the big picture is now, as you've already pointed out, we sell luxuries. And can people afford luxuries? That's the question. Do people want luxuries? You've already got changing tastes, right? Honestly, even charity shops are turning away standard donations now. I totally disagree with you there, Denver. Unless you got another point to make, because everywhere I go, everybody is struggling. And with regards to the economics, where they say that there was only a slight difference between the cost of growth and inflation and things, it's totally made up, because they're not actually taking the cost difference between what things cost 2 years ago or a year ago to what things cost now. They're really not. I've watched a few different breakdowns, and we are in a mess. It's a financial check that defines it. You'll have to explain that one to me, fella. I don't know what that means. But I've watched a couple of things, videos on people who have tried to explain the state of the UK's finances and the world, in all honesty. And they reckon we've only had like a 2 or 3% inflation. But that's not the case. Now, I don't know about you, but I go to the supermarket, and things that used to cost us 50 pence for something are now costing 80, 90 pence. That is not a 2 or 3% inflation. That's almost double. But when you actually look at the inflation markup, they say it's very minimal. But look at the cost of utilities in the last 5 years. The cost of food in the last 5 years, the cost of fuel, everything, it's gone crazy. Everything has gone absolutely crazy. And everywhere I go, everybody is saying that they skint. Now, if that's not a financial crisis, I don't know what is. People, in fact, let me have a look at this. How many people used a food bank in the UK this year? 2025 so far. Just out of curiosity. I don't know if I can share this. And I just asked Google, how many people have used a food bank in the UK as of 2025 this year? And 2.9 million emergency food parcels have been within the UK this year alone. If that's not a financial crisis, I don't know what is. Inflation's definitely high, 100%. They fake in the inflation figures. I don't care what anyone says. I've watched the video that explains it, and I don't know exactly. I'm not smart enough to understand exactly how it works when they describe it, but I'm telling you now, I watched an expert explaining it, and there's a massive difference in inflation reality to what they're actually stating. That doesn't make sense. The economy is growing. When the economy stops growing, that is a recession. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I get the technical point being made there. I think what we're talking about is what's happening on the ground, I guess, with people spending, and what's confidence like, what's morale like, and how that's actually affecting, certainly in our industry, how people are actually spending money on luxuries. And I think, as you say,
They reckon the economy has grown by 0.7%, but I don't see it. I really don't.
Well, I'm sure you can do a proper deep dive into how much of that is actual borrowing and all that sort of stuff, and how much of it is kind of going into certain areas that don't impact everyday people.
Okay, let me put it this way then. All right, I don't know whether this even comes into whether we're in a recession or not, right? But we started with the Labour government in apparently a £20 million black hole, or 20 billion or 20 billion black hole. It's now on 40 or 60. As the years gone on, we've gone more and more in debt. So how that can be classed as growth and improvement, I don't know, mate. I really don't. I don't believe for 1 second this UK is in a growing economy. In fact, I see less and less people. Well, everybody I see is struggling. Everywhere I go. I gotta look that up. I really have. What was it I said, Denki? I can't think. What was it I said? What was I going to look up? I can't remember now. Lost my mind. Just went
borrowing the black hole. You were talking about the black hole.
Oh yeah,
and
UK black hole.
Yeah. I think that the thing is, and as
UK black hole figures, right? So they had a 22 million black goal at the start of the Labour government, and it's now 50 billion black hole. 51 billion black hole now, and we started. When did Labour come in? 2 years ago. Let's just see. When Labour started, we were 22 billion in black hole. We're now 52 billion in black hole. That is a 150% increase in the black hole. Normally, when you have GBT or, is it GBT? When you have a country in growth, debt should come down, not go up. Yeah, and the train drivers are still on strike because they apparently don't have enough money, mate. The country is in a mess, plain and simple. Whether we agree on it's officially in a recession or not, when people's outgoings are greater than their incoming, I think that is basically signs that we're in trouble. That's the only way I can put it. I'm look, you know me, mate. I'm not very school educated because I'm dyslexic, didn't get on in school. All right. I just observe things as I see them, and I see patterns, and I can put patterns together. Being dyslexic, I see and read patterns clearly. And what I'm seeing is a country that's gone 150% more in debt over the last 2 years than it was 2 years ago. People paying double out for everything they got with no more money coming in. That is a country on its knees, as far as I'm concerned. A country that can't keep going, not in its current situation.
Well, I had a letter with my last water bill telling me it was effectively doubling, which is going to be the same for everyone else as well, because apparently they haven't been increasing for inflation, and look at all these other things we're investing in and all that. It's. Do
you want to know why your water bill doubled? Because I actually threatened to take him to court. Welsh Water got fined last year 400 million or 40 million, whatever it was, by the government because they were dumping sewage in the rivers and they were having too much leaks and all the rest of it. They got fined by Ofsted or whatever it was for not keeping up their standards. And they've passed that on to all the customers. So how was that company being fined?
Well, they're not. Yeah. As the letter will say, we're making these improvements, and actually what they're doing is just making up their past failures. But it's ongoing, just bad decisions, wasting money in different areas. That I say
they've had another fine of 1.5 million again in May this year. That's Welsh Water. So they're just passing on their fines. So yet again, Is that just another stealth tax because the government are finding the Welsh water and the Welsh water are doubling our water bill? So effectively, there's another way the government is saying, well, we want more money. We're going to take it off all the people now via water.
Madness.
No comment. We're just trying to understand what's changing in Denver in the antiques industry. I worked Malvern last week and there was next to no trade, mate. You had the resellers. Now, I class resellers as different to trade. That's just me in my head. I class resellers as people who want quick flip profits on eBay and things like that. I class trade as people who are long-term antique dealers with antique shops and traditional antiques and things like that. It's just my way of categorizing people. And I didn't see hardly any traditional trade in Malvern. We were wondering, is it to do with UK economy, USA tariffs, the state of the antiques business, changing in tastes? We're just trying to figure out where something's gone wrong. Online, we're doing fine, but we're selling worldwide online. But when it comes to markets, including car boot sales, we've seen a reflection in the car boot sales at the same time. Then you've got to start asking yourself what the hell's going on. And when people pick something up, they ask the price, so they clearly want it, have a need for it, and you say 50 pence, and they put it down in disgust, as we've already mentioned. When did 50 pence become expensive?
Do you think retail a factor here as well? Because a lot of those trades that you were expecting to see, I should have seen, that's retail people, right? That's people who have antique shops or in antique centres. They're the people you expect to see at the trade, especially buying bigger items like furniture and rugs and all that type of stuff. And they're the ones who weren't there. Now, if you keep an eye on the trade, you'll see there's loads of stories about antique centres shutting. There's ones in London. I can't remember the name of it, but there's one that's been there for like over 100 years. A really famous antique shop that shut earlier in the year, I think it was, who said their costs are spiraling, aren't making enough money. I recently left the pumping station down in Cardiff. To me, it was almost like I was finding it wasn't worth my time. You could make a bit of money, but just not enough to spend your time and effort. Whereas you could just have smaller items and go online, which is a lot cleaner and a lot more efficient. And a lot of dealers I know, not just in the pumping station, but across the board, saying, talk about retail seems to be slowing down. Do you think is that only reflective of the economy, or is that reflective as well?
I don't know. When you got the likes of Drew Pritchard and things like that who can't even keep an antique shop open, right? Now, the government could have helped. If they got rid of council tax on businesses, right, and just took the 20 or 40% and the VAT of the profits, then they'd have been making more money than having a percentage of nothing, because there's so many high street shops unmanned, it's boarded up now. It's almost intentional to destroy the high street. In my view anyway, because when you got the likes of Drew Pritchard with a massive millions and millions of following, and he couldn't even keep his shop open, he shut his shop down now to sell online, because anybody can sell it online now, because you got a worldwide market. I don't know.
That's a good point as well, because I looked into, after I left the pumping station, I seriously looked into a retail shop in Caerphilly, a small town just outside Cardiff, for anyone who doesn't know. Not a massive population, certainly not a very wealthy area in general. So I thought, well, I could have a little shop that I open a certain amount of days a week. I work out there, I operate out there. I mean, the costs of rent were astronomical. And when you look around Caerphilly town centre, the amount of empty shops there are, and a lot of the shops which are charity shops, well, everyone knows what I'm probably going to say next, the barbers and all that, which obviously I don't use. But there's so many of those type of shops, and you start wondering, well, how is it that it's like we're getting hit from both ends. If there's such financial struggles at the minute, and there's empty shops and stuff like that, you'd think a business like mine, in a normal world would have an opportunity there, thinking, oh, I could open a shop and I can get a really good rate and I could get something going. I can't even do that because the rates are astronomical. That's before I started looking at the council rates and all that. So I just saw the comment from Denver about beard trims as well. I'm not sure how much good that will do me, to be honest. But yeah,
I
think
wanted to
that's
open. There was a store 21 shut down in Aberdeen, right? And I wanted to open store 21. And I was going to do house clearance through it because it was a big store. I could have the furniture and everything, right? And I'd probably put some cabinets around the wall and rent cabinets out at £10 a week. It was £47,000 a year for the rent, £26,000 a year for the rates. Then it was something like £15,000 a year for electric. That was then. God knows what it is now, right? It was astronomical figures. You had to make like £250,000 just to pay the bills before you made a penny. Our business cannot be making £250,000 buying and selling or doing house clearances in a year of expenses. If you're paying £250,000 a year in expenses, you're out the window. Now, surely, right, the council would have been better off saying that £26,000 a year we're not getting because the shop's empty. We'll chuck that away. You can work in rate free, and we'll take 20% of your profits and your VAT. Wouldn't that have been better? They'd have had an income, but they'd rather see the shops empty than have them in it. I just don't get it. I haven't sold in Malvern, Denver for probably 3 years. But next time I'm going, I'll certainly give you a heads up. You can always come say hi. It'd be nice to meet you. No, we're doing fine online. I want to point that out. Online is absolutely fine, but the UK markets and car boot sales, we're seeing a major downturn and difference. I think you'd agree with that one, Kieron, yeah?
Apart from the US market, which is a big market, you know, the US side of things. I know what Denver said earlier on that you should never become reliant which is true, because if you become reliant, someone brings in a change like Trump has, and then that's your industry killed. But it was a big market, so it's obviously going to have an impact. So apart from the US side of things, it's pretty much plodding along, yeah.
But this one, they've also had to diversify, cut living costs. And that's a perfect example of what you've just said you're doing. You are no longer spending. You're working with the stock you've currently got. You're cutting costs down to survive.
I'm borrowing.
That's what you've got to do in a recession. Yeah. We're all acting like we're in a recession, whether we are technically or not in a recession. We're all acting like we're in a recession. Really are.
Which, you know, the problem is I'm doing that, but so is everyone else. So I'm trying to sell stuff, but everyone else has the same mentality as me towards buying. So it just, yeah, it's difficult. It's tough going. It's hard to find answers to it as well.
With this one, do you remember when HMRC announced last year they were going to be investigating everybody selling online and all the rest of it? And I said to you, that's actually going to be a positive thing for us. Because what I said was, it's going to be less competition at the car boot sales and less competition selling. They'd have to buy it off us if they want it. In that sense, it was a good thing for us because I have had the best year buying of my life. I have been coming back, and you've watched me buy the stuff, Kieron, right? You've been there. I've been coming back with £1,500, £2,000 worth of stock from a weekend's buy-in that owes me next to nothing. And you've seen it yourself. And it's been week after week after week. Not to mention I bought that teapot for £3 that's potentially worth hundreds of thousands. I've had the best year of my life. I've never had a better year buying. But is that because everyone's skint and they're selling everything they got? And it's all right to buy it, but if you can't sell it...
Can I put something out there as well with it? I'm not sure I'm going to convey this very well, but so I'm relatively new into the trade, 5 years, and how I got into it early on was, I had a passion for it. I did a lot of research. I was doing it on the side. I was buying from auction, so items I could look up beforehand, get a good idea of the value, get them at a certain price that I knew I could sell them for. Using Google Lens a lot. I was using Google Lens probably before anyone else in the antique trade were, to be honest. I'm not using either both, so I just was because I knew about it from my previous job. Now everyone's using it. But that helped me propel me into where I am now. I feel that Denver's right. A lot of people are stop selling online, but I feel like that's a lot of the older dealers who were dabbling with it have decided they can't, they don't want to fuss anymore. But there's a lot more people like me who have started in the last couple of years, who have realised that through Google Lens, through auctions, and now they can go to car boot sales with that little bit of extra knowledge. They can go and, whether it be on the side, I can't imagine a lot of people don't do it full time. But on the side, they can go and they can go out and they can do that and they can sell on eBay. I think there's a lot more of those people around who have joined recently. The stock is out there because I think, we're talking about a huge amount of people who do antiques. But I think it has swelled up a lot with people who sell on eBay, Etsy, even vintage, that type of stuff.
You just touched on a good point there. I don't even know if you realised it. And I don't know how many people who are watching this are going to watch it back later this relates to. But how many people out there now are full-time resellers or full-time antique dealers? This is our day job. This is what we do for a living. We are not working a job and then supported by that job. Whatever we make doing this is our income. So if something changes, we see it straight away. We're not one of these people that we work a 9 to 5, come home, do this in the evenings or on weekends and make a little extra money. So when something changes, like the USA tariff, we notice it straight away because we notice it on our income straight away. Because we are full-time, the slightest tweak can cost us a lot of money. And we see that instantly. So we're very sensitive to change. We're very sensitive to current climate situations, things like that. But I suppose if you're part-time, supported by a job, you're not going to notice.
Totally. Yeah, I think that's it's not a bad position to be in at the moment, to be honest, doing it on the side, because you have got that security of your income. As long as you stay disciplined and not get carried away, or if you just treat it like that, then it's probably as good a position to be in as anyone else at the moment. I know you can't spend as much time on it, or you can't go out and maybe look for as much stuff as we are. But with the things the way they are at the minute, where things are stagnating, I can see the appeal of having that. I'm not saying it's good, it's right for you, for example, Edward, with your business the way it is. But I mean for people who are kind of
Forget how big my business is, right? It's nothing to do with how big my business is, mate, right? I just sit there and cringe thinking of working 9 to 5 for a job who doesn't appreciate it, for a manager who talks to you like crap or treats you like crap, or dealing with toxic other employees, co-workers, if you like. It just brings so much stress to your life. I just want a life where I can actually enjoy what I do for a living and have a quality of life. And that's why I do what I do, because obviously my dyslexia and things, I focus on my own business. If I was in a job with somebody and they were shouting at me like I see some people, I got to be honest with you, right? I'd probably be locked up. I really would.
Yeah, because I was thinking like my last well now, I was 3 years ago when I had a job, and it was what I considered like a good job with good people around, but it only takes one person you work with, or one bad day to really sort of knock it. And you are absolutely right. You got to take the good, even though as I say, it's slow business at the minute and concerning. The amount of positives around doing this full time still outweigh the negatives, even if the money's not flowing as much as you'd want it to. So yeah, you got to take it all as it comes, haven't you?
I'll put it this way, right? I consider modern day work and minimum wage almost modern day slavery, because they pay you enough to keep you showing up, to keep you struggling and surviving, but they don't pay you enough to get out of it. If you didn't need the money to work and pay bills, you wouldn't be there. So they pay you just enough to make sure you've got to show up so you can just about pay your bills and survive, but then you got to go back to it. They never let you build growth. It's the same with this UK country, right? Once you break a certain income limit, they double your tax. The system is designed to make it as hard for you to grow wealth and get out of the system as they can. It's that simple.
Mm.
Denver's always had multiple revenue streams. He doesn't like to rely on one too heavily. Now, we do that in a sense because we do the scrap metals, whether it's gold, silver, or we buy the copper and brass as scrap. We do the car boot sales as a little income, side income, to spend the money back out onto the antiques, and we do the antiques. But I don't know. What do you think?
Well, our revenue streams. Yeah, well, that's something that we are always trying to do as best as. How do I put it? Like, you've got additional services and stuff as well, haven't you, on the website? So other things you'll do beyond just buying and selling.
And I wrote a book.
And you wrote a book, absolutely. Yeah, so that's something that should be part of your business. I don't know if Dan was referring to kind of like different completely. So one antique thing and then doing something else is a completely different way of earning income. So everyone's situation is different. Everyone's got to do what they got to do, haven't they? And it'd be nice if people people could work hard and be entrepreneurial and be rewarded and appreciated for that. But it does seem at the minute, as I was saying with the retail side of things, that you don't get any sort of real. I don't mean rewarding being paid for it, but you don't seem to get much encouragement to be like that at the minute. It just seems to be a constant fight against regulation. God knows what else, obstacles and that type of thing. But there we go.
No, I used to be a landlord because we owned 3 houses, right? Referring to Denver's comment here. But I don't know whether you've noticed. Now, I don't know how accurate this is, but I watched a video yesterday. Now, bear in mind, it's only a video, I haven't confirmed it, right? Where they said that the minimum rental term now is going to be 6 years for a property in the UK, and you cannot evict them unless it's something like financial hardships and things like that. You can no longer fault evict people. So if they're not paying and things like that, you can't evict them. And they're going to have a minimum of 6-year terms. And then, of course, once you got a 6-year term, then you got the problem of they're a long-term tenant, and then you'd never be able to evict them anyway. So you want to check that out, because I watched a video on that yesterday, because I used to rent 2 of my properties. I still have all the property videos coming up. But I sold all my properties off because of all the hassles and this thing with the Rachel Reeves now, where they were on about double council tax for a second home and things like that. But of course, nothing ever applies to MPs, does it? All the rules they come in with, they're exempt to. So, but you want to watch that one, Denver. But what I will say, we've talked doom and gloom for probably an hour, right? Have you got any tips you can give them on surviving the recession? What plans have you got to survive yourself and make money and keep going yourself?
I suppose that the key thing is to focus on the kind of like, why are you into the antiques trade for a start? The people who are in the antiques trade purely because they see it as a money-making venture, a buy and sell, that's all they're in it for. They're probably the ones who are going to struggle the most because they'll get frustrated with the things not selling fast enough. They'll start making bad decisions, that type of stuff. I still try my best to go around and find good quality items that I can tell a story about, that I can promote and almost bring back to life. And take the time to put on my website, have a long description, trying to get the people I'm trying to appeal to are people who appreciate the item and the quality of the item and the history of the item. And I think that's what will pay off ultimately. And I think that's where, look, unfortunately for situations like this, when an industry bloats too much and it's too many sellers, not enough buyers, the brutal reality of it is that a certain amount of those sellers are going to have to drop off. And what you got to try and do is, well, how do you make sure you're still part of it? And you just got to think about, well, what are you offering that's unique? What are you offering which is different? Are you able to come in at a different angle and offer stock which is one-off, unusual, not mass-produced? Can you present in a certain way? Can you add value through telling the story of the item and showing appreciation of the item? And that's the only advice I give, is just have a look at your business, have a look at what you're offering, look at it from a buyer's point of view, and just see if you're are you offering something which is a bit different, which is unique? And that's the only advice I can give.
Well, I agree with you there. Avoid mass produced if you can, because at the end of the day, the only way to sell them in a recession or in this current situation, and if we were not going to call it a recession, we'll say in the state of the country, would be not to have to compete with everyone else. So one-offs, unique items, pieces of art, things like that, they're one of a kind. If someone wants them, they got to buy them off you or they can't have them. That is a help. Cutting costs. For example, we don't sell on eBay, or I don't sell on eBay anymore, but if you sell on eBay as a business, you pay. But you can sell privately for free. So maybe open up a private account. You can sell a couple of £1,000 worth in a year for free. That'd be a way of saving a bit of money, cutting costs. That certainly wouldn't be illegal. Every member of the family could have an account. I don't know.
Not just screwing over eBay, which isn't illegal. So as long as you declare,
Well, isn't illegal. eBay have screwed me for years. eBay have had so much money off me, mate. It is a crime, the amount of money I used to pay them. I used to work 4 weeks of the month, and I'd give 1 week's wages to eBay for my fees because I used to make so much money on there. I used to turn well over 1,000 a week on eBay, and one week of the month I had to go to eBay to cover my costs. But you need to cut costs to survive, that's for sure. Avoid unnecessary spending. If you've already got stock, then when you're out buying stock, then the only stock you should be buying is either almost free or something that you're never going to see again. And I'll give you an example. Now, if you watch my channel, and I know I've had people like Denver, and now they've supported me for years. I've been a hoarder. I have got shipping containers full of unlisted stock, just safety nets sitting there doing nothing. Now, one way for me, I would survive the recession is I will work my way through that safety net. So I will list hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of stock over the next year, but having zero outlay because I've already bought it. So I'll have income without outgoings. We cut down on things. Well, I'd say we cut down, but we don't. We go out all the time. But you can cut down on things like social events and things like that. He says, as I went up with the call yesterday and the day before. But that's the type of things I do to survive. Unlike Denver, the extra revenues. If you're buying stuff cheap and you're buying, let's say, job lots from auction, and you keep all the metal side. I used to weigh in all my copper and brass at Christmas to pay for Christmas for the kids. That was a good little earner. So all my copper and brass paid for Christmas every year. But I know it's just be careful, innit? I suppose the only way to do it is track. Now, you and I were talking about this earlier. I've created a video on my YouTube channel. It's on my membership side now, unfortunately, but I created a video that I consider to be one of my best ever videos, or one of my most important videos I've ever made, which was all about tracking. The importance of tracking in life, in business, in everything. Tracking your outgoings, tracking your spending. And I'll give you an example. If you're running an antique shop and you're not doing very well, then first of all, you track the numbers coming over the door. If you haven't got enough people coming over the door, then it's an advertising issue. People don't know about you. If you've got enough people coming over the door, but they're not converting into customers, then you've either got an issue with your stock or you've got an issue with your pricing. Things like that. So tracking all the metrics and things like that. I've done all of that, and to be honest with you, that's really relevant, because the only way to get through a financial crisis, then, let's call it that, would be to track your outgoings, track your spending, and closely monitor everything that changes.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's the thing that a lot of people don't do till very late on today. It's kind of not considered. It's a lot of effort. It can probably come across as feeling quite boring, isn't it? Just looking at data. But you shouldn't think of it as numbers and on a page. You should be seeing it as kind of the keys to unlock improvements. And as you say, when you identify the problem, if you're having a conversion problem, that's kind of a good thing to focus in on how you can implement things that are going to change your business.
But this isn't just relevant if you're struggling. This
Yeah.
is brilliant if you're in growth, because let's say, for argument's sake, you're making a fortune, right? You got loads of people coming over the door, they convert in. Then you can go in even deeper on what are they buying, and then you can focus more on buying more of that product, make more money. That's the way to grow. It's not just a survival mechanism; it's a growth mechanism at the same time. Because the more you monitor, the more you track, the more you understand your business, the more you understand your customers, the more you understand what they want. Then you can provide them what they want, make more money again.
And the thing about antiques, which is really important to know as well, is that just because you're doing very well at the minute doesn't mean you're going to be doing very well in 5 years' time, because you've got to trace how things are changing. We know plenty of dealers, don't we, where they still operate like the trade was 5 years ago, and they think the things that were popular and making money then still make money today.
Yeah.
And you almost, I mean, I don't bother arguing with them, but there are people who will.
I know which one you're referring
I
to.
know one where you cannot believe when I won't buy certain items. Like, it's the kind of like, you don't know what you're doing sort of thing. But it hasn't quite worked out. Well, why do you think you've still got it when you're selling it that much? So yeah, I think that's a thing. And I'm not saying that in a way of, because I can see how you end up like that, because if you I can imagine myself being like that in 5 years' time, if that makes sense, based on things I know are selling now. Unless I keep a track on. But I can imagine it being very easy. Basically, it's just not accepting things are changing and wanting to believe that all the things that you've learned and all the things that you've identified as being the best items are always going to be popular. But that's not how antiques works. They change fairly regularly. There are things that you used to be able to get double for last year that you won't be able to get for now. So that's another reason it's not.
Well, Kindred Spirit there is doing exactly what I do and what you do, which is we buy loads of high-end and scarce items. And I gotta be honest, you said it yourself. The only time we're going to part with money over the last month or two is if the item is scarce, rare, and you're never going to see it again, or it comes in for nothing. And I think that's the only way to go at the moment. The car boot sale season's coming to an end for us anyway, they're all shutting down now, so we ain't got many left in the fields and things before this year's season's over, and then we're back traveling to and undercover boot sales and things.
Unless you want to do the fairs.
I will be. We'll be doing Malvern together. What I learned this week working at Malvern, and that was the actual spark of the entire video, was there was hardly any traditional trade there. Now, if that means I go to Malvern and I'm buying 18th century drinking glasses for £3, £4, £5 a piece, I'll fill a car up with them because I can sell them all day long.
100%. It's yeah, that's the other side of this, isn't it? Is if the selling's not great, then that suggests the buy-in could be.
Well, as Denver have said, he's bought some amazing stuff this year. Kindred Spirit just said there, they bought some beautiful stuff. You know, I've had the best year I've had in probably 20 years. And you've had some beautiful stuff yourself, from Chinese porcelain, 18th century Chinese porcelain for a couple of quid. You know, you've had an amazing year. We all have.
Oh, I've had my best year by far. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. It's one of those things, isn't it, where in a recession people are trying to sell their stuff more, and so it's that old quandary, isn't it? The paradox of being an antique dealer. You can the sales are slow, but you've never had a better opportunity to buy stuff. So you've got to be really considerate about what you're buying. You know, those things you couldn't sell at Malvern, even though you know what they should have been, what they were fetching, say, a year or so ago. What would you do now if you walked past them in a boot sale? Like, would you buy
the fireplace? I would buy in a heartbeat. Because I take that to my local scrappies and get a couple of £100 for it. But the rugs from Iran and things like that, and the African art, well, I say leave them here. It all depends on. I'm running an experiment now, and it all depends how they sell now when I put them up into auction. I'm going to put them into Nigel Ward's if I can get the stuff in there. And I'm going to take a few carloads. I'm not going to hire a van again. I'm going to take a few carloads up. I'm going to put the rocking horse in. That rocking horse should have been £300, £400, £500, no problem at all. But it's all going in no reserve. I'm going to run it just as an experiment to see what my items sell for. It'll just be a very interesting video to see, because what I'll do, I'll probably list the items and the prices of what I was asking for them in Malvern before the auction. Then we'll watch the auction live on the video and see what the stuff sells for, and we'll see whether or not the auction route's another route we could go down. Because Les, he buys stuff at the boot sales and the markets and puts it all in auction and does okay.
Yeah, especially with things which, stuff you don't want to ship and stuff. Well, certainly stuff you don't want to ship. Yeah, that'll be really interesting. I think Nigel was a really good one as well, because that's one of those auctions where it should sell in that one, because of where it's positioned and everything. So
Nigel Ward been going a very long time, right? And it's a well-established auction house, and I know they got a very big selection of dealers. Now, what this experiment will do for us isn't so much telling us what the stuff's worth. It'll tell us if tastes have changed, if trends have changed. Because if I put these things in there and they still don't sell, then it's an item issue, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, I'm already blaming Malvern because of a conversion issue, because there was no one there to convert over to sales. The trade was not in Malvern on the Sunday morning. I don't care what anyone says, right? When the aisles were that empty for the first couple of hours, right, the trade wasn't there. So if I put the stuff into auction and it still don't sell, then we know it's an issue with the item and tastes have changed, and we need to start looking at what is selling. Because you could, even in a recession, you can profit. People have become millionaires in recessions. It's finding out what the market needs.
Well, what Demers per there is that's how I feel about auctions. Is that I used to use them a lot more up until recently, and yeah, I find that I find things are going for more than they sell for on eBay. A lot of I've done checks as well. I've looked at like certain items and gone onto eBay sold. Because I think people are doing Google image reverse and then seeing the price that comes up, which is usually an asking price and usually the highest asking price, and buying things at auction based on that and making mistakes, to be honest. But and Wi-Fi is a good example. I think there was few examples recently, weren't there? Where I went for thousands and thousands, rare ones, albeit, but still, it's.
Do you know what my theory is with that? My theory with that is very similar to yours, but I think there's so many people now coming into the game. They're not making enough money on their job to survive because of the cost of living these days. And everywhere you look, someone is saying, get a side hustle, get a side hustle, get a side hustle.
Yeah.
So all these people with zero experience now, they can't come to a boot sale and find the stuff themselves in boxes. They don't have that knowledge. So what they do instead, they'll go to the auction because they're all brand new. They need to know what it is. The auctioneer is describing the item for them. They can Google image it, as you're saying. They see in the prices. They're buying it using their income from their job, hoping to make a side hustle, and a lot of them are getting stuck with it.
That's 100%.
But the prices in auction are definitely going more than retail on a lot of the times.
I know for a fact that's true because, as I said, I still look at local auctions. I still look at them and I see what's up for sale and stuff. And I also look at Facebook Marketplace. And I see the items that have been sold in the auctions showing up on Facebook Marketplace. And look, I'm a bit nosy because it's my trade, it's what I do. So I will look at the person and see what else they're selling. And I can see that they bought all these items from auction. So it's public record, isn't it? How much they paid. I can work out how much they paid for it, and I can see what they're asking for it. And it looks like some people even use the same pictures that the auction used to sell their items on Facebook. So I know for certain, I'm pretty certain based on that there are a lot of people now, I assume it's a side hustle, who, as you say, are doing it, buying things from auction, putting it straight on Facebook Marketplace. Nothing wrong with that. If it depends on what your expectations are, isn't it? If you see it as an investment and, well, I got my job, I'll buy it, I'll put it on Facebook Marketplace, it'll sit there till someone comes around and picks it up, and I'll make 20-30 quid off it. Fair play to you. Why not? It is in that sense. But I'm just saying there's a lot of it going on, and when there's people like us who are doing it as a living, it makes it more difficult for us to, because I can't do that, can I? I can't buy things for 50 quid and then sell it for 75 quid. I've got all my other costs and time and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, they're more. That's why I agree with you. They're more competitive because of that.
with Denver's comment there, it's going to take a month to do this experiment, mate, because Nigel Ward runs monthly sales. But they just had a sale on Sunday gone. So I'm going to give them an email this week and a list of what I want to vend. And I'm going to put my items in there. And then in a month's time, we're going to do the video. And we're going to take a look at what's sold. We may even do it as a live game, do the auction live as well. That'd be interesting. And we're going to look at what's sold. And in all honesty, if the stuff sells really, really well in the auction, then there's quite a lot of things I may think, I'm not too worried if that goes on the website when the auction, then off it'll go and we'll try again. But it'll be a good experiment because as antique dealers, we can get stuck in what we know, if that makes sense. We know certain things we've bought for decades that sell. Maybe the tastes have changed. Maybe those things we've bought and sold don't sell no more. You know, I find it very hard to think that a day would come where a rug from Iran, a handmade dyed wool rug from Iran, shouldn't sell for £100. But maybe we're at that day. You know, maybe we are. I don't know. Now, with regards to your Whitefriars, you got here you were talking about the Whitefriars. You said it was like £12,000 for a banjo of ours. Now, if Whitefriars is going that crazy, I don't know if you watched quite recently, in fact, Kieron, you were with me one of the days. We were walking through Hengoed one day, chatting together, walking down an aisle. I turned and I bought a Whitefriars vase for 50p. And then a week later, I picked up a finger vase and the next size up from Gatley Gay for 50 pence each. So if people are buying this stuff for so much money, then it would make sense if they're buying an auction because they don't have the knowledge yet because they're brand new side hustles to go to the car boot sale and find it themselves. So they're paying more money in auction and hoping to sell their own afterwards. I don't know.
Very likely, yeah. Not marked, is it? So you have to know what
Get a good price on marketplace. Interesting. Sharon and Rob, we've already mentioned in today's video. They sell hundreds of pounds worth every single week on marketplace. Everything they list, they can sell. And we had a discussion about this recently. I can't sell on marketplace. Every time I try, I get messed about. Is it still available? Yes, no reply. Is it still available? Yes, no reply. And people are messaging you like 2 or 3 in the morning. And we had a chat about Sharon and Rob's marketplace, not in a bad way, in a good way, because we were trying to understand how they sell so much and I can't sell nothing. And I'd love to know how they do it. Now, one of the things they did do, they were very kind. They screenshot all the groups they joined, and they sent me all the groups they're on, so that I can add all the groups onto my marketplace. So when I put something up for sale, you share in these groups. But you had a theory on how they sell so well on marketplace, didn't you? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I guess it's like pricing related, I guess, isn't it? You kind of price it at kind of a sweet spot. I think they're really good at that. They know how.
They're extremely good at that.
They're good. That's what they're spot on with. It's almost like they maximize. They find that sweet spot of selling fast and making good money from it as well, which is actually very difficult to work out a lot of the time. But you might as well put stuff on marketplace because there's no reason not to. It's free to do, and you never know who's going to come across it, and you haven't got. You do get a lot of hassle, but every now and again, a lot of time you do get.
I hate marketplace. I can never sell nothing on marketplace, mate. I put a gold Rolex on there last week. Scrapped a £360, a lady's Rolex. I couldn't get £400 for it on marketplace. I can't get on with marketplace at all. Try and try and try. I just can't get on with it. With regards to auction, yes, there is a buyer's premium and a seller's premium at auction. If you're selling at auction, you pay fees. If you're buying at auction, you pay fees. As for delivery, not all auctions will do delivery. You have to actually physically attend and collect your items, or attend and bid, or bid online. But I've done videos on auctions and fees and that in the past. If anybody watching this now or later wants to know anything about auctions, maybe we could do a live on auctions, your experiences with auctions and things like that. We could do that for definite. But I'm definitely going to run this experiment with the auction and see what happens. As for marketplace, I keep listing on marketplace in hope, but I don't get anywhere. But I'm going to
when it comes to car boot sales and marketplace, I'm going to copy and be more like Sean and Rob, because I think they have got it absolutely perfect when it comes to marketplace and things like that. If I want to sell it on marketplace, I'm going to make sure it's cheap enough that anybody will want it. And as for the car boot sales, I'm really, 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 really considering, right, doing what other people are doing and saying, there's my entire stall, take photographs of it, 6 boxes, perfect for car boot sale, come and buy it. For someone else who wants to make money at the car boot sale rather than me having to sell it there. That's going to be another experiment I think will be good to try.
Yeah. Well, we know that, there are people who treat that as a sideline, don't they, for cash.
Yeah.
Well,
Dan does well selling marketplace groups.
Well, you did that with your paperweight though, effectively, didn't you? You put it on there to get identified, but that led to that's the same concept.
Denver, I bought a 19th century glitchy paperweight in Hengoid pound about 3-4 weeks ago. Absolutely stunning. Some surface scratching, but it had been untouched, and it was a 19th century glitchy. It was lamp work with the rose, but it had really unusual petals. Anyway, I put it on Paperweight Heaven. I said when I bought it, I thought it was a glitchy, because I showed you when I said to you I think it's glitchy. Put it on Paperweight Heaven, and they agreed. I had some like 50 likes, and I had 3 to 4 people message me off Paperweight Heaven trying to buy it. In the end, I sold it less than 24 hours later, and they were fighting over it, and I had £500 for it off someone on the group. And the others were gutted they couldn't buy it. I think I'd have had more if I put an auction with them. But yeah, that was Facebook, the power of Facebook groups. Yeah, but notice the post and know who you sold it to. Yeah, well, there was a lady as well who was desperately trying to buy it, and she was devastated she couldn't have it. Honest to God, right? It was a beautiful paperweight, don't it? You got to be honest, Key. It was really, really nice. But it came in for £1 out of a box in Hengoid before the public opened the gates. And that just goes to strengthen why we go early to car boot sales and sell. Do you know, I go to a car boot sale. Some of them at the end of this season, we've just covered our pitch, haven't we? We've done like £10-20 in 3-4 hours of selling. It's been atrocious. But by going to the car boot sales and walking around early, I bought a Chinese teapot that's potentially worth hundreds of thousands. I bought that glitchy paperweight for £1. I sold it for 500 in less than a day. I bought countless amounts of gold that have come in costume jewelry boxes for 50p in £1. That's just an example. That's why we go to them early. The likes of Goitra, Madly, they allow you to walk around. They even charge you trade entrance, so trade can pay £10 and go in and walk around with the sellers. Places like Hengoid and Getligay and that, they don't allow you to walk around, but we had a big row for sneaking around, didn't we?
Yeah, yeah.
We wiped the floor with us. We were sneaking around in Hengoid, and I got to be honest, Hengoid is where I had my big Chinese teapot that could potentially be a life changer. Still waiting on London for that. I had the glitchy from Hengoid. That was £1 into 500 in less than 24 hours. That's like putting a bet on the Grand National, isn't it? 100 to 1, 500 to 1, and it came in. Should have sent it to Gordon Taylor for a polish. Believe it or not, I was going to send it for repair, and there was a woman willing to give me £500 for it as it stood, untouched, no nonsense. And I thought, I know they can sell up to like £2,000, can't they, for a really good early glitchy? And I thought, £500 in, job done, no work, no hassle, no risks, and she can do it as she wants. I put it up for sale for her, and he went and bought it instantly. So, because I messaged the two of them that were finally there, and I said, look, it's going up to £500, first one to get it wins, and they were both there at the same time trying to buy it. So, more of them we need.
Yeah. That's your advice, isn't it? Just go out and find them.
Just find more glitchy paperweights, isn't it?
Yeah.
But that's what we were on about earlier, though, effectively, which is buy rare, buy unique, buy things they can't find anywhere else. Now, the gentleman who bought it is actually in Germany and would have had to pay customs charges on that when he got to Germany as well, mind. And I put the honest declaration of £500 down. So I don't know how much he had to pay to Germany to get that into Germany. Plus, he had to pay postage. Yeah, I can relate to that. Everything sticks with me, buddy.
What, do you want a pound each?
Do you have anything you struggle to part with, Key?
Well, in terms of like them so much, or
it's stuff you buy and you just can't bring yourself to sell it. Not that because you can't sell it, you can't bring yourself to sell it.
Oh, totally. There's many pieces of Chinese port. There's things that you obviously put up for like you overprice them. I don't go on a lot of things, but you do it on purpose, yeah, just because it's always the one-offs. It's always the thing where I know for a fact there's not another one out there. It's a one-off. So yeah, that's the bit. I mean, something I had in. I showed you the photos of it, the Chinese enamel thing, which I think is actually early 19th century, and because it's got European subjects on it, which is like a massive.
I think it's 18th century actually.
With it, yeah, possibly. I was playing it safe. It's 18th century one, and it's got damage on it, but the images of the European subjects are still there. If you look up the sold prices for them, they're just some astronomical prices for European subject ones. So I don't know what it's one of those. I don't know what I'm going to do with that. I got to really think it through, and
you're going to have to get it checked out. You're going to have to pay Peter Coombs to value it for you, right? But I think that one's a Qinglong period, without a shadow of a doubt. It's got damage on it, which really puts a lot of people off and affects the value. But it's a rarity, and in all honesty, I'd probably struggle to sell it. It'd sit in my cabinet, and I'd enjoy it. Because you're never going to see another one outside of a museum.
The guy, when I bought that was quite funny actually. That because if you look at it, to someone who's not, to the untrained eye, it's a damaged metal vase, right? But he saw me from the corner of his eye, and I sort of raced towards it, fast pace, and grabbed it. And I went, "Oh, how much for that?" And he went, "Well, seeing as you picked it up with such authority, it must be something. So you can give me a £5 for it." I'm like, "Fair enough, it's £5." So you think he was going to?
Thought he was robbing you?
Yeah, exactly. It was funny because I was like, "You probably was going to ask 50p," but just because of my reaction to it was, he just jumped. He added, he put it to a £5. But I was thinking, some people still would have said, "Oh, I'll give you £2.50," and I was like, "Just £5, yeah, take it." So yeah.
I think he kicked himself afterwards, thinking, "What could I have asked?" It's one of those philosophical questions, isn't it? If you bought it that quick, what did I undersell here?
Well, that's like when I sold that really bad pair of silver tongs to you when I was asking £1 for everything, and then because you look quite keen, I went, "Oh, £2." Right, here we are. So it's exactly the same, actually. It's that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I'm bad. I'm terrible. If I get excited about something, I think it's pretty obvious. Sorry, you said poker face fail.
Nice backer garland for a £5. Well done. And yeah, poker face fail. My poker face didn't fail, right? I was in Hengoid, right? And they pulled out a Chinese Yixing teapot, and my hands were shaking. I was like, it's holding and shaking. And I was, "How much is it?" And he charged me £3 for it, mate. And honestly, my poker face was, as I was counting the money, the smile. I couldn't take the smile away as I was counting the money. So I haven't got a poker face.
Same, yeah. You get scared. Like you say, I put a video out a couple of days ago. Not many people watched it, so if anyone's still watching, please go to my channel and see it. It's the Japanese bowl I found at auction. I can't go. If you watch the video, it's only 8 minutes long. You'll see the full story. But
it goes to show, though, right, why people go to auctions. I know I'm interrupting you, right? I'm sorry. Yeah. Kieron went to Antiques auction. Now, Ryan Beach is a really good dealer. He's been in the business in a very long time. But it goes to show even experts overlook stuff. Ryan has put a beautiful, very rare, one-of-a-kind Japanese porcelain bowl that's been hand-carved into auction, and you bought it for £20?
£20.
Something like 20 quid, is it?
I don't really blame him for that. I think,
I'm not blaming him. I'm just saying it happens. But that's why people go to auctions. There's something like £20 you paid for it, and this is museum quality, seriously rare. Go and watch the video. All right, seriously beautiful piece of porcelain that should never have been in an auction, and I'd have been in a London sale room, would have fetched thousands and thousands. And he pulls it out of Anthemian in Cardiff for 20 quid. It's really interesting piece of porcelain. Go and have a look at that. It's on his YouTube channel. But I wasn't blaming Ryan. Right?
No, I know. I mean more that he did what I suppose he could when he asked me. He put a low estimate on it, but there was no way of knowing what it was without kind of reaching out to experts and getting it appraised that way. I don't know if an auction house would ever do that. I guess the big ones would, but he's put loads of photos on there. He's given it every chance in his auction, but no one else was it. That's what was intrigued me. £20. No one wanted to take a risk on it for 20 quid. So that kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier on about the auction mentality with why a lot of things are flying. I think it is that's the thing, 100%. There was nothing. I did that myself beforehand because I was convinced there was something, but I could find nothing. So
if they could have Google Lens that and got an opinion, you wouldn't have bought it.
I have no idea what if he marked that up correctly. He said this is made by this person. Gave it the full story. I couldn't tell you what it would have gone for. Who knows? But that's why I still look at auctions. Actually, if you're wondering why I don't really buy at them, but I still look at them, it's because of things like that. You never know what. It only takes one, doesn't it? Thing to slip through.
It does. So. Anyway, I think we better start calling it down. It's 2:00 now. Is there anything you want to add in that could potentially help people that we haven't added? Any tips you could share to help people make a bit of money, save a bit of money, or just survive?
I think we covered it really. To be honest, I can't think of anything now off the top of my head. I think I'd probably say just sit down and just accept the reality of the situation and just accept what's happening, and maybe just assess your own. We all got different situations. Some of us are doing a sideline. Some of us are running it as a full business. Some of us are doing it as a hobby. I don't think there's any getting away from it. The question of this is the antique industry in trouble? I think it is. I think it certainly is changing.
It's not in trouble. It's changing, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So I think you just have to think, how are you operating, and have a look at, as you say, do you need to streamline? Do you need to reassess what you're buying and how much you're paying towards it? Do you need to maybe rethink your asking prices? I think now's the time to do it, because we're about to enter a period which is a very slow and dreary time for the antiques trade in the run up to Christmas. I think I usually find October, November to be quite slow, and then picks up in December, and then January, February usually are pretty decent, and then slows down again for me. But yeah, I think that's all I can really say beyond what we said before around what to buy and what to look for, and streamlining. Just make an assessment of your own business and what you're doing, and make sure that you're not getting caught up and spending the same amount. What you definitely can't be doing, in my opinion, is spending the same amount of money on your stock that you were earlier in the year or last year. I think you have to then reassess that. That's my word.
Well, before I give my final thought, I suppose, have anyone else got anything they want to share that we haven't covered? Denver, I don't know about you, or Kindred Spirit, if you want to, because you've been very vocal in the chat, and I'm very, very grateful for both of you joining in. So if either of you have got anything you want to add in, we'll add that in now. But while they're thinking, for me, it's tracking. And I mean that. And I don't just mean tracking in your job, in your antiques, track everything. Track every penny that comes in, every penny goes out, and account for it all. Don't just sit down and say, well, this is my money coming in, and then at the end of the week, well, that's what I got left. You need to know where every penny's going and make every penny work for you. That's the only thing I can say, is know where every penny is going. Because it will make a difference. And once you actually sit down and you look at every penny and you think, okay, well, I actually wasted £25 this week on fish ops, but I could have cooked or I bought that vase from auction and I got 6 of them already on my site. What did I need it? You got to track everything, account for every penny. That's my opinion. That's the only way to survive. I've survived 3 recessions, and I know Denver, you don't think we're actually officially in a recession, but I think the country's on its arse. That's the only way I could put it. I don't think a recession is even strong enough word for what I think the country's going through now, because it's not just financial crisis, it's identity crisis, it's everything crisis at the moment. The country's in a real mess. Denver, October, November is best months. The only month of the year I find quiet, believe it or not, is December. That's the only month of the year I find quiet, because I don't find people buy off me for Christmas presents. I find they buy them in January out of money they've had. December for me is my only quiet month ever. It's been a great watch. Thank you very much. Told I need to go Sainsbury's. Well, what's that, instead of Marks and Spencer's? Sensible.
Good Aldi.
Thank you. Thank you. Anything you want to add in, Key, before we shut it down?
No. I think we covered a lot of ground there, so I'm happy. Be interesting to hear any comments for anyone who watches it later on, and I'll keep an eye on them as well. And any comments?
Right. Kieron has a really good YouTube channel. Right. I really want to get him up to 1,000 subscribers. Now, I know this video hasn't had huge interaction today. It's middle of the day, a lot of people are in work, but it will have the views later on. So if you're watching back later on, please consider going over and subscribing to Kieron's channel. I want to get him to 1,000 subscribers. If you want to learn how to do antiques and collectibles, I have a mentorship side. It's £1 a week if you're interested. Don't feel pressured. But I put all my educational videos on there, how to do this, how to do that. Everything educational now is behind the membership wall, I'm sorry. And I'm going to do a video this week explaining why. That's going to be a bit of an eye-opener for you. But yeah, it's £1 a week. If you want to learn how to do what we are doing and make it a successful living, because this is our day job, it's not just a part-time job or side hustle for us, then please consider joining the membership. I'm on YouTube and Patreon. I've also got a book on Amazon, sitting on Amazon. You can find a link to that on my website to teach you everything you need to know. And other than that, I hope you've enjoyed the chat. It's been an interesting chat. What's your conclusion before we go?
Well,
do you think it's changing, or do you think it's in trouble?
Well, first of all, I want to just add on to that and say, as a pay-in Patreon member as well, for Edward's membership, it is, I mean, £1 a week is, I mean, it's not, I don't even know how to put into words really, that's nothing compared to what you get out of it. You know, and I'm talking to someone who runs my own antiques business, hugely interesting information. The videos you made on Melbourne, for example, was fascinating and a fantastic insight, and actually helps you make decisions. So I will say that. And yeah, just to conclude on the video, is it in trouble? I guess it's, yeah, look, the positive spin on it is it's changing, and you just need to roll with that change and try and work out what your position is and how you're gonna operate in the changing market. It's certainly not the same as it was even a year ago. It's going in a different direction, so you just want to make sure that you are at the forefront and not being left in the way.
Now, kindred spirit, think about the fact that you may have to slightly diversify your stock and try different selling platforms. And I'll add on to that and say, don't be afraid to let things go just for your money back if you have to, cash flow and things like that, especially if something's not selling for a very long time and you need income. But I'm going to, for my final conclusion, I'm going to refer to something else that kindred spirit said, and that's this. All industries are struggling. The only way to get through them is to adapt and really watch what you're doing, innit? Because the UK is struggling.
Don't focus on what you can change rather than what you can't as well, I suppose, is a good way of looking at it, isn't it? It's not much you can do about the economy, but you can change your own business, and now you are running things. So that's how I try and operate as well. I just focus on the little changes in how you do things, and hopefully will lead to the best outcomes.
I want to thank Kieron for coming on today. I want to thank Denver and Kindred Spirit for joining in today's chat. And I really hope you got something out of today's chat, and I hope it helps. We've done quite a few lives now, and we tend to get on pretty well and have a chit chat and a bit of fun. So if you subscribe to Kieron or myself, then you won't miss the next one. And we'll probably do the next one. Well, I might even do it a live chatting on why I started membership. And I'm going to share some prices on videos, because one of the things Kieron came up with, he said, was the reason a lot of people won't pay you £1 a week membership is because they think you're making a fortune on YouTube. And I'm going to share some actual genuine YouTube analytics screenshots for you of prices of some of the videos I've done. I don't make my videos to make the money. I made the videos to share the advice, the tips, the content, the antiques, the love I got and passion I got of antiques. I shared one to you earlier, and what I'd made on it, £2.20 on one video. So it's going to be an interesting video. We'll probably do that one live as well, give you an eye-opener on what you actually make on videos on YouTube. So if you're thinking you're going to jump on YouTube and become a millionaire overnight, like some have, you're mistaken. I got 41-something thousand followers, millions of views, and still I get videos that make £2 and £3. But we'll cover all that anyway. I might do a live on it and discussion. That way you can give your opinions as to whether you'd support membership, whether you wouldn't, and things like that. But I'm on Patreon and YouTube as a member. But all my membership stuff, my educational stuff is behind a membership wall now. But that's 30 years worth of knowledge in it. It has to be worth something.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for everyone who watched, joined in, and thank you to Kieron. And again, go across and subscribe to Kieron on Taliesin Antiques and check out the website, taliesinantiques.com, or check mine out, antiquesarena.com, especially if you want to know whether we know what we're talking about. Because I've got one of the largest independent websites that has been confirmed in the UK. And we had that confirmed. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye.